also attendees came here. I will just give a short introduction about our IEEE Student Branch, and then we can start with the presentation. It won't take so long. So, we are IEEE Student Branch Leuven, PES Chapter, so Power Energy Society, and we are these people, as you can see. Yeah, I'm the chair, I'm a PhD student for KU Leuven, and that's by Energieville. You probably know the vice chair of FIS, and then all the people here that you will see throughout the night. But also we have a lot of volunteers, and we're pretty happy about that. We started 3 years ago with just 3 people, and now, yeah, you can see we had a bit of more people. Our vision, or our main goal here, is to actually try to talk to the industry and see what is missing, and try to fill this gap with our research, but also with events such as this one. And then we also have some master energy students and master electrical engineering students that they come also to find some jobs. And as you can see, we also train and develop young professionals. We try to send our volunteers a bit to conferences here and there. We support the women engineering, really important for us, and I will mention it later. And we indeed try to bring innovation with these events to energy sector, but also society. You can see here we had some industry workshops with these companies for our students. We had some technical workshops as well, because we give our PhD students some time to share their ideas and their research. We had some guest lectures, 2 professors, one from UCD Dublin and one from Cyprus. They came recently to give a lecture, obviously with some food there. We had the symposium, as you're here. We had the company visit. We're pretty proud of this. 2 weeks ago, we went to Antwerp to visit the port of Antwerp, Bruges, and Equans. You can see this amazing offshore substation. It was pretty interesting, and we had some people coming. But we also have some social events. And yeah, as you can see, we also get some prizes. Especially in 2023, we had 17 events, and yeah, pretty happy about that. As I mentioned before, we support IEEE Women in Engineering. It was a chapter that was founded some months ago, and we are proud that we had the first symposium, decarbonization of our society, in which we tried to have a gender-balanced pool of speakers, and also we had a friend coming from Berkeley to give a lecture about her research. In addition, we also had an Easter egg hunt some days ago that was pretty funny. So I still have some chocolate if you want it. So in short, why you should collaborate with us or come to our events, because I think they're interesting, but also we give the chance to students and to other PhDs to actually find a job or to help the research on energy and society. Just if you want to follow us on LinkedIn, we are almost 700 followers now. We have an active YouTube channel in which we post the recording of our events, and also on the website you see our events, but also the one from the IEEE Student Branch Leuven in general. There are other chapters. And now, I guess we can start the event. You see here the presentations. We have the first round of presentations, then we will have a dinner with pizzas in the same place where we had the first reception, and then we will have a second round of presentations and a panel session moderated by Professor Geert Deconinck. So thanks everyone for being here, and I guess I can call the first speaker here, Axel. And yeah, I will leave it to Afis to introduce the speaker.
Hi everyone, welcome again to the symposium. So our first speaker is Axel, who is from Enexis. Axel is a network strategist at Enexis, a distribution system operator that develops and manages energy networks in the Netherlands. His team's work focuses on the development of flexibility in the network congestion management, a contemporary issue due to the increasing scarcity of network capacity. Axel holds an MSc in Applied Physics from TU Delft and has gained experience in the energy sector by exploring several professional roles in his career. In his talk, He will discuss the current challenges in identifying and utilizing flexibility in existing networks. So Axel, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Can I do it without this? Can you hear me? Or? Yeah, for the people online. Oh, for the people online. Okay. Thank you for the introduction. No, not interesting enough. Oh. Something is appearing. Oh, now it's gone. So yeah, like was said in the introduction, my name is Axel Meeuwsen. I'm working as a grid strategist and also team lead at Enexis, a Dutch DSO. Originally, my COO was invited for this talk, but unfortunately he couldn't be here tonight, so you'll have to do with me. Hopefully that's also fine. Yeah, so this works. Oh yeah, I'm a team lead of 5 people, and also my team is expanding. So if after this talk you're interested in working for DSO, please. We have some Belgians in working for us actually. So yeah, this is a joke I always make. Safety first, of course. And you know where the fire exits are. Hopefully, this is familiar to you, but Enexis is a Dutch DSO, a distribution system operator in the northern and southern part of the Netherlands. We manage and operate the electricity and grid, gas and electricity grids here and here. And there are 2 other major DSOs in the Netherlands and some 2 or 3 smaller DSOs. And we have been quite some time, many times in the media lately, not necessarily only positive articles. So, like maybe you know, the Dutch electricity grid is yeah, full, congested in both directions. So both consumption and production of electricity is yeah, has gained a large increase over the years due to the electrification. Let me see. I think this is also congested. This battery. Oh. Yeah. So due to an increase in sustainable energy production, electric vehicles, heat pumps, and other developments like induction cooking and large-scale batteries, we have seen the last 5 years actually a huge increase in demand and production of electricity that we are unable to deal with like we would like to. And this is of course due to the climate change that we want to combat as with the whole world actually. Hopefully you agree. And yeah, some figures, backstory. We have seen large increases in wind generation, solar generation, large numbers, and also an increase in the large connections that are requested at our DSO, especially a large spike the last few years. And of course, we are trying to keep up with that demand, reinforcing the grid and expanding its capacity year by year. I think we are putting away 2 gigawatts of transformer capacity each year. As you can see also here on the left and right graphs. On the right side is the small, medium, low voltage transformers. But like I said, we are unable to keep up with the demand, and in these graphs you can see the waiting list that is growing for new connections. That people want to have a new connection with us, but we are unable to give that to them due to the congestion we're experiencing. Now, how do we deal with that congestion apart from trying to reinforce the grid as fast as we possibly can? A solution to bridge that gap between now and the reinforcements is congestion management. And the idea of congestion management is that you sell more than you have, just like with the airlines do with plane tickets. So what they do is they sell more plane tickets than they have seats available in the plane, and then they hope some people in the end that bought the ticket don't show up, and then they made more money and everybody's happy. But in the unfortunate situation that everybody shows up and there's more people wanting to board the plane than there are seats available, they do this bidding in which they ask who is willing to take the next plane for some reimbursements. And then hopefully somebody says, yeah, for 200 euros, I'll take the next plane, and then your problem is fixed. We're doing that with the electricity as well. So the idea is you take in, or take in more customers than you normally would have, and then you monitor a day ahead how your consumption is going to take place. And if you predict the demand or production is higher than the capacity that you have available, you ask for customers in your grid who is willing to produce or take less electricity than they idea would like, and then you give them some money for that. That's the idea of congestion management. And with that, you can use more of the available grid capacity. How does that work in practice? So we make midterm predictions of the load that will take place. So we have long-term predictions in order to identify where do we need the reinforcements. That's another team, and my team is working on midterm predictions, like so say 0 to 5 years, and we make those graphs on the upper right corner, where we predict how the load of a certain transformer will likely be in some year in the future. So this is an example graph of some substation in the year 2026, where you'll see the upper and lower bounds for that transformer, and you see in the winter we have a problem for this substation, because the predicted load will exceed the capacity, and then so that's what my team does, and then we give that information to our another department that identifies high potentials behind this congestion point. And high potentials are customers, large customers typically, that are, or we think, are flexible in their demand for electricity. And we try to negotiate those flexibility options beforehand. So we negotiate how much money they want in order to reduce their load at our request. And then another team does the day ahead prognosis, so they make these kinds of graphs with where the purple one is the predicted load for some time in the future, and you see, or you try to predict when do you need those flexibility options that you negotiated earlier. And of course, what you see here is a first challenge that we are experiencing already, is that it's very hard to actually predict accurately what your load will be, even one day ahead, even the next day. So here you can see the 95% confidence interval of your prediction, and even one day ahead, the real consumption will exceed the 95% confidence interval. So even one day in the future, it's very hard to accurately predict your load and how much and when you need your flexibility options. Some other challenges we are experiencing right now also is that many customers are not flexible, and that's due to some different reasons. First one is awareness. So for many years, even maybe 2 years ago, there was no congestion. Flexibility, access to electricity was a given, and not many companies or persons were actively doing or thinking about their electricity. It was just a side note that was there, and once a year you looked where there's a better price for your electricity, and then that's that. So awareness is one. That's, I think, getting better. But another challenge we're facing is the willingness to be flexible. So if you're a customer behind the congestion points and you have what you want and you don't want anything else, then why would you give away something that you want, even for, I think, some high prices that we're offering? If you're comfortable with the position you're in, why would you give that up? Fortunately, the law gives some options that we can force customers to give away their flexibility, and it's called mandated congestion management, in which customers are forced to have those, at least those talks. Last challenge is that many processes or companies are just not flexible. Like they want to make shoes. People come in at 9 and leave at 5, and there's little flexibility in that. But there's also, of course, some opportunities. Like I showed, there's a huge waiting list for people that want something extra from us, but we can't offer right now. And in those lists are also some companies that already have something right now, and they want something extra from us. And then we can negotiate a win-win scenario where during peak hours they reduce something in their load, but during off hours we can give them something extra with respect to now. Those are called congestieverzachters in Dutch. But that's a nice, I think, example of that. Not all things in life are zero-sum games. And we're also exploring. That's I think we're doing the last half year. Something that I dubbed static flexibility is where you kind of fill the gaps between the peaks in a static way. So what you see, we have congestion during peak hours, but during the night, for example, we always have, there's also always off-peak. And many customers are not flexible on a day-to-day basis, but they are, if you can show them, or if you can make an agreement that every day from 0 to 6 in the night, during the night, they are somewhat flexible. Or they can, for example, put a battery there that they can charge during the night and discharge during the day when they need more electricity than we can offer them in a firm way. And yeah, so like I said, between the peaks, there are many gaps that we can fill. Like I said, batteries are also, we're not sure yet how to deal with them. Of course, batteries can offer some flexibility, and they can help reduce congestion. But what we see, unfortunately, is that there are more lucrative markets than the congestion markets. For example, the balancing markets of the TSO, the transmission system operator. There's just more money to be made there than the money we can offer helping congestion. So yes, batteries can help mitigate congestion, but only under the right conditions. So we're struggling with that yet still. And also many batteries that are applying for connection now are in the magnitude of 10, 20, 30, maybe even 70 megawatts, which is like the equivalent of hundreds, maybe thousands of regular customers. So that's a challenge. So summarizing, grid congestion is here to stay. Due to the energy transition, we have an increased supply and demand of electricity and limited materials, time and personnel. We need flexibility to bridge that gap between now and reinforcements. We do that by shaving the peaks and also filling the gaps. And challenges that we're facing are willingness, awareness, and capability to be flexible. But still, there are some opportunities in where you can create a win-win scenario and some static flexibility that I explained. And with that, I would like to conclude my presentation. Thank you. Questions?
Yes, we have time for 1 or 2 questions max. Can you?
Yeah. So you mentioned that it's crucial for consumers or flexibility owners to participate in transition, and for that you make it mandatory for them to respond. So in those cases, are you providing different contracts, or there is sub-metering, or how do you activate flexibility remotely? That's the question number 1. And what is the incentive for the flexibility owners, and how do you normally derive such flexibility from the prosumer?
Yeah. So first question: how do you incentivize flexibility? Under Dutch law, there's 3 phases of congestion management. First is voluntary congestion management, where you can just nicely ask a customer, "Do you want to help us be flexible and in return get some money?" That's also always the first phase we're trying. When that does not deliver the things we need, the second phase is mandated or mandatory congestion management, in which customers are obligated to offer their flexibility that they have, but still under the price that they can determine themselves. And the last phase is when we see that those prices that they want are not market proof, or I don't know the English word. We can go to non-market-based congestion management, and then the law prescribes or mandates that the customers offer their flexibility at the same price that it costs them. And the incentive for customers to work with us or help us out are first, I think, just helping other people or being a nice person. Second is making some extra money, and also sometimes they don't have a choice. And like I said, sometimes you can make a win-win scenario in they win some but also lose some at certain hours or days.
So the second question was, how do you activate such flexibility? Because you have a sub-metering and a remote signal, or is it that you verify activate, and how do you measure that they actually respond?
So to activate the flexibility, we just show our list of large customers behind the congestion point, and we just call them like, and then we just go to them. We go to them and explain the issue that we're having and the opportunities that are there, and then you do the negotiations for contract, and then during day ahead of real time, you send a signal saying reduce your load by this much, and then we also have the meters or the data of those customers, and then we can verify that indeed they have delivered what we expected from them.
I'm afraid we'll have to stop it here because we are a bit short on time. But you can talk to Axel during the dinner, and also there will be panel discussion. Thank you, Axel, for the interesting presentation. Give a big round of applause to it. All right, so our next speaker is from Centrica, Alexei. Actually, I'm hesitating to pronounce the surname just to not be wrong, but I'll try. Alexei Mashlakov. So Alexei holds a double master degree in electrical engineering from Moscow Power Engineering Institute and LUT University in Finland. In 2021, he earned a DSc in Energy Market and Solar Economy at LUT University. His expertise lie in the data-driven energy forecasting, power grid modeling, and spatiotemporal flexibility optimization. And in 2022, Alexei joined Centrica's R&I team, focusing on bringing residential demand flexibility to the flexibility markets. Passionate about shaping the energy landscape, he's making waves in the demand-side response solutions, which the waves he's gonna transmit to you. So, Alexei, the floor is yours. Thanks.
Exactly. Hi, everyone. So I'm part of Centrica DSR team, and I thought it's important to start with a bit of history, a lesson of where Centrica DSR team comes from. So the history dates back to 2010, when a startup called Restore was founded and started in Antwerpen, Belgium. And the idea of the startup was to deliver demand-side management software for industrial customers. Then, at the year of 2017, Restore had a portfolio of 1.7 gigawatts of peak load capacity into the grid, and was bought by Centrica Group. In year 2019, a proof of concept started about the residential demand-side response program. And it was mainly driven by research and innovation projects such as Cornwall, Local Energy Market, or Optimize Prime. The idea was to prove that we can use the IoT technology in order to bring the residential demand response to the system markets and to support the grid. Then another important milestone is year 2022, when I joined Centrica. As a successful trial, DSR platform became part of Net Zero Ventures and became more integrated in the ecosystem of Centrica, which includes the Hive, a provider of smart home solution, so that we can offer more customer-centric propositions to the end users. Then we became an integral part of British Gas, which is the largest UK energy supplier, and that integration allows us now to integrate our DSR proposition into the smart tariff in UK. And now, at the year 2024, we have a portfolio of diverse energy assets, such as solar PV, and batteries, hot water tank, heat pumps, electric vehicle chargers, electric storage heaters, and we are partnering with a large group of manufacturers of those devices or service providers. And then, why aggregation? What's the value of the aggregation? Let's consider a simple example of end customer that has electric vehicle. He plugs in the electric vehicle, and the only input that he sets up is the ready by time. So he wants the vehicle to be charged enough at certain period of time. The way how the charging process would be realized could be different. It could be such that we can charge as soon as possible, as soon as he plugs in the charger. It could be as late as possible, so we can postpone it to the latest time. We can also try to minimize the charging cost based on the customer tariff. There could be other drivers for this charging process. So in the end, this brings us to the definition, maybe a bit more formal definition of the flexibility. So that's the capability of the device to realize different operational modes by modulating its injection or offtake into the grid in scale or time. And there could be another drivers to that flexibility. One of the drivers, for instance, could be the balancing of the grid. If there is not enough supply into the grid, we can deviate from the initial planning. We can deviate from the baseline and stop the charging process. Or vice versa, if we see that there is a surplus of renewables into the grid, lots of wind in Belgium or UK, we can start the charging. If the customer has a charger that is V2G capable, or the car is V2G capable, we can also inject the power into the grid, and that could be done, for instance, to minimize the peak power in the local network. Importantly, this concept could be applied to not only to the mobility but also to the heating, which has certain runtime that we can use. It could be applied in the same way to the storage. The value comes when we have thousands and millions of those devices that we can operate, and that's a nice challenge to solve. And what is flexibility aggregation in the end? It's platform-based coordination of the energy resources in order to provide flexibility services or trade energy on the markets. Why platform-based? Platform-based is because we need to have the integration layer between those devices at the customer end and the markets or system services at the other end. In a nutshell, what this process consists of is the management of those resources in such way that we can collect them in a portfolio, in aggregated portfolio that would be enough in volume, so we can trade it on the energy markets or provide specific service, then offering that aggregated flexibility to the markets. And if accepted, we need to make sure that the service is performed correctly, and if done so, we can then fairly distribute the revenue to the end customer. It's not only a benefit between prosumers and system operators or markets. We can also bring the value to the society, and the value comes from different sources. First, you have the reduction in terms of extra capacity that you need to install and build and maintain. If you have less generation capacity that might be not CO2 friendly, you could reduce also CO2, potential CO2 emissions by using the flexibility of the devices. And finally, we can also postpone or to defer the update or reinforcement of the local infrastructure such as grid. So we, in that case, reduce the capacity-based price for the network infrastructure. That was high level. If we divide it in separate steps, which we need to take in order to go from point A to point B, then the process of bringing the flexibility to the market starts with the material participation. We need a customer to rent or to buy and then to install the resource. For specific resource, we need to develop either a flexibility contract that would bring it to the market or a special tariff that would decrease the cost for the customer. The first step is the connectivity between the devices, the customer end, and the DSR platform. Having this connectivity at our disposal, we can access the data, we can access the measurements, we can access the controls that the asset performing and track that those are correct. Important piece is the optimization. We need to extract as much value of flexibility as possible, but important is that that value should not go against the customer comfort or the customer preferences. It also shouldn't go against the grid capacity, for instance, that the customer has. The other piece is aggregation, is when you have many heterogeneous devices that have certain flexibility. We need to combine them in the pools that would be suitable to particular markets and then operate them in the virtual power plant. To be traded in the market, we need to have the market competencies, and we need to have interface to those markets. So many markets, many platforms, which also bring the challenge of incorporating flexibility to those markets. And finally, we want to have the customer visibility of the actions that we are doing and the reasons why we are doing. So importance of the customer experience is also crucial in this value chain. Now I want to show you a bit of the use cases that are available now to the customer in Belgium or in UK. So I will look at the three main use cases of storage, heating, and mobility. Let's start with the storage one. And this one concerns about balancing of the grid, which is one of the most important services for the transmission system operator. So far, those services are mainly provided by large generators or now mostly large battery storages. But the way how we can change is we can create the same value that big battery storages bring to the market by aggregating small-scale home storages. And we are doing so in Belgium. We are providing frequency containment reserve with home batteries. There are more than 5,000 batteries now doing that on a daily basis. And this brings our customers some monetary values and also, I guess, intrinsic value of being the part of the power system control loop. The mobility is a bit different case in the sense that you not always have the EV available. And that's why what we are trying to do is to stimulate the customer willingness to plug in the EV and have the car as much as time as disposable to flexibility control as possible. There are specific tariffs in, for instance, UK with Hive, where you try to plug it in for at least 6 hours, then push the charge into the off-peak hours, saving some money and saving the CO2 emissions. You can also even do it even for free nowadays. Tariffs available for V2G or available for normal one-directional chargers. But that's not everything, because we also need to have access to balancing markets, and it's challenging here in continental Europe. It's challenging in Europe, in UK, but luckily there are some sandboxes where we can trial, for instance, participation in the balancing mechanism. One of the such sandboxes actually concerns the electric storage heating device that we trialed in UK and also participated with it in the balancing mechanism. As a result, also there is a new tariff for the customer that allows to have very cheap rate during the night hours. And one more thing is the, again, frequency response service with the hot water tanks. This trial was in 2021, where we could use this fast reacting hot water tank in order to provide firm frequency response, something very, very similar to frequency containment reserve in Europe. And so that's what is happening now. That's what is available to the customers, but it's also important to ask what will be the next step. And Centrica is investing a lot of effort into the research and innovation projects. One actually is very relevant to what Axel was talking about. This photo is kind of adaptation of the Netherlands, but for the UK. So yeah, we look at the grid capacity as something that is given as a granted. It might not be the same in several years. So we must find the ways how we can balance the flexibility provision and network support in the right way. And that's something that we've been working on lately. The other part is that there are many people striving now for local energy governance, and that's good because it brings the value to the communities. But what is important is that the flexibility that those local energy communities have, it shouldn't be locked within the community. We still need to find the ways how we can use the flexibility for system-wide benefits and social welfare. So yeah, that's the portfolio of the project that we're working on lately, and yeah, some updates are coming. So please stay tuned for further updates about Centrica research in the energy supply. Yeah, I hope that in the end we do our bit and we do it right, and you do your bit. And we will have the future that is net zero. Yeah, actually, if any of you wants to go more towards the flexibility aggregation, so please don't hesitate to contact me. There are lots of colleagues from, or your ex-colleagues from KU Leuven working. So, yeah, thank you.
They're asking how can we aggregate flexibility, keeping in mind the network constraints?
Yeah, that's something that we've been working, for instance, in the Big Data for Energy project. There are two types of constraint: the current constraint, the voltage constraint. Here we were looking more on the voltage constraints, for instance, and the idea there was that we can derive some of the dynamics of the local grid based on the data that we collect. So the aggregators collect lots of data. It's the second data of the voltage currents in the network, and we actually can approximate how the grid would behave if we inject extra power to activate the flexibility services. That's something we can, we actually did proof of concept in one of the algorithms where we take into account when we activate, when we distribute the frequency response activations. And yeah, that's one way. And the other way is to work more in collaboration with the DSOs on the tariffs that would promote, for instance, the aggregators to have the activations in such a way that we would not bring more peaks to the network. So that's these are, I guess, the main solutions so far.
You need to aggregate a lot of assets in order to gain some sizable volume of flexibility. And as the number of transactions would increase, the value would decrease. So how do you deal with that challenge? Because aggregators usually go for industrial assets, but you have gone for residential assets?
Yeah, it's a good question. You mean that, sorry, I will repeat the question. I think I can ask, how do you deal with cannibalization of the market, right? Like there are more assets on the market that would drive the price lower and then push out maybe the residential flexibility of the market? Is that?
I don't know exactly what cannibalization means, but what I mean to ask is that in residential flexibility, you need a lot of transactions, lot of assets to be monitored.
Yes.
How do you still make value out of this?
Yeah, like we try to minimize the flow of data that, for instance, is not being updated. We don't need to, well, we measure very regular all the parameters of the battery, of the connection point, but sometimes they don't change at the second level. So one option is to have the filtering of the measurements that you collect in the central node. That could be like my solution to having lots of the transaction, having lots of data coming in.
Actually, we are out of time. Sorry. So, you can ask more. Actually, you can ask because now it's the dinner time. So
Yeah,
you can
go ahead.
just like one question. That's it. One more, yeah.
Mm. Yeah, it depends. So the question is that the value, the monetary value that the customer receives from the services might not be very lucrative, but like one of the solution is the value stacking. So we are not only doing the, for instance, FCR, we're combining it with self-consumption, we can combine it with peak shaving at the local connection point. So, and that's just two services, or local balancing plus FCR. But of course, in order to extract the maximum value, we need to go beyond that. And to go beyond that, we need to access to the markets, like balancing, other balancing markets, for instance. Yeah, thank you.
So guys, now is the time for our third speaker. We have with us Pierre Crucifix. Yeah, Crucifix. And so Pierre is an engineer and economist active in the market-oriented activities at Inside. He has contributed to some of the Euphemia's R&D achievements and our power matching algorithm deployment and their power matching algorithm deployment in India. He has also worked on for system operators by designing and delivering local and balancing market solutions. Pierre is now the product manager at Inside Power Matching Algorithm, shaping how the market clearing offer can evolve to allow even more end customers around the world to get access to cheap and clean electricity. So, Pierre, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So thank you for the introduction. I hope you had a good dinner time and you are full of energy to continue the sessions. So as you can see, the topic, market-driven flexibility strategies. I know there is a lot of power system engineers in the room, so it was good also to mention first what's really the concept of a market and how it looks like in the power sector, to be just sure. I know some of you have studied it and probably are working around it on a daily basis, but it's still interesting to ask ourselves these questions than to build on more advanced concept. And simply stated, I think a market is just a place where we connect some buyers of a good with some seller of this good. which is, in our case, some power or flexibilities or other services around it. But simply stated, it's this concept. How does it look like for power market? We can take a simple example with some bidders. So there are people willing to sell some energy to earn some money, and some other people wants to buy some. So we can see for the 5 orders there that there are different prices for them, and there are the quantity they are ready to provide or to buy. And we translate that into this kind of view that can be familiar to the most economic-oriented people. We rank them by merit order, which means that the most efficient producers that are ready to sell the energy for the cheapest price will be activated first in the first megawatt hour of the curve, while on the demand side, we serve first the people with the highest utility, so we'll get the most value of the same megawatt hour, and then we do it in a decreasing price order. One specificity of the biggest power market is the fact that they are auction-based, as we call them, and it's done in a position of continuous market that also happen for usually market with less bids, which means that we gather all the bids of the participant before clearing the market, and so we take all of them, and it's done in a way that once we have the gate closure, so people cannot bid anymore, we look at all the bids to match the most efficient producers with the consumers that will have the highest utility for it, which is a bit opposite to, for example, stock exchange that are really kind of a bilateral trade also via a central market. And so how does it look like in practice? We just seek as economists to cross the two curves of the production and the consumption to find what is called the equilibrium price, which is given by the marginally accepted bid, the bid that is accepted partly, and which also reveals us the traded volume. So with this simple example with 5 bids, we can see that the price is €7 per megawatt hour, and the quantity is of 8 megawatt hour. So just to better understand when we call about market, and we'll talk about after about how to set them up, what's behind, in fact, it's just people sharing prices and quantity, and that are then letting the market act for them. Something also good to know, I think, in Europe for people less familiar with the market is that there is no single power market. And so I took this image from one professor that is also active now again at KU Leuven from his last book. So this is the European example when we can see that many markets, in fact, act together to form something that is harmonious. So both in terms of energy trading, but also ensure that the trading considerations are taken into account or are managed separately already from years ahead to real time. There are also markets for balancing and markets to try to correct what's going wrong with the market as they do today, both in real time, that's where flexibility markets often come into action, but sometimes also years before, like in Belgium, there is the capacity remuneration mechanism, which is known as the mechanism to help the phase out of nuclear to ensure that we still have enough security of supply for the years to come. But tonight we'll focus really on this one, but I thought it was good to still know that we are in a broader ecosystem and that all markets are sometimes impacting the other, or at least the participants will consider all of them, as it was said before by Axel, that sometimes the batteries prefer to go on one market rather than the others. A small word now about my company, Inside, that you may maybe not have heard about before. So we are close to a 25 years old company with our headquarters in Belgium, so in Louvain-la-Neuve, the kind of the sister city of this one, and with also office in Japan and the US, but which are more extensions of our office to serve the markets over there. We have many people with high degrees as well, now still more than 10% PhD, and we are more close to 250 people today. How I would describe us is really a blend of software engineers and energy experts trying to help the system operators and the market operators to better operate thanks to advanced analytic solutions. And what do we mean by advanced analytic solution? It's basically many of the methods that you may use in your research or studies, and that's one of the things I was told before joining Inside, which people didn't like to me, is the fact that what you really learn at uni, you can use it at Inside, and it's not the case of every company, and you can see some examples here that may sound familiar. And I ended up the slides by mentioning something we are currently proud of, is the fact that we enable 2 billion people, so 1 human out of 4 on this planet, to get access to cleaner and cheaper energy, thanks to our market clearing solutions that allows more renewable energy and more participants to take part in the market with more complex orders. So that's made for the presentation of the company, and as you could see from the presentation of myself, I had the chance to work a bit on these different projects, and now a bit to step back and to help our solution to still progress, and which allowed it to run in Japan since this month, in fact. So we are clearing the day at Japan and the balancing market in the UK for some months now with the full change they made. Talking now specifically about flexibility, here is a panel of the project we've taken part in over the past years. And as you can see, it also makes echo to Alexei's presentation, because in fact we've worked with Centrica on some of them, of course, over there. And that's good to take part in different projects there, because we can try to step back on some of the questions that are there, to come back again to our topic of the day, which is the market-driven strategies, and to try to see how to make the best use of flexibility in different setups where there are different actors, different time frames, and different needs. So coming back on our first figure, it was not just made for the introduction, but we'll use it to dig it a bit down more. What is the flexibility market? It's there that we can see a bit the difference also with Centrica. On our side, at Inside, we really help market operator to better operate. And the sellers are, on one side, the aggregators, really to help the residential consumers, or sometimes the bigger ones, to provide a bigger service altogether, or not to have to manage all the market aspects. But you can also envision to have medium consumers like SMEs or prosumers that take part to the market directly. And on the other side, we have different type of entities. The DSO on one side, so like NXCs, but also the TSO can be interested to buy some flexibility in the market to solve its own issue. And what's also less common in practice, but theoretically possible, is to have commercial parties also willing to buy flexibility on these markets. And so each of these actors, also making a link with the introduction, share some information about the prices, the quantity they are willing to trade, and a super important factor is the location of this offer on the grid, because we cannot use all of them. And it's what we do then with the market is really to try to solve the problems where there happens, because we can take into account network constraints into the market clearing algorithm. And so for you, with your flexibility at home, to try to put a bit more concrete stuff, you could go through an aggregator like Centrica to just have them manage everything seamlessly for you. But I let Centrica detail more if you want to know more about how it works in practice. Zooming in on these two actors right now, I thought it was interesting because they are kind of really particular. They're not like everyone for several reasons. One of them is that they are legal monopolists, so they are in a setup that they have a critical mission that they are the only one to do, because it's not worth, economically speaking, to have two networks run in parallel in a country. So it's a huge responsibility, but that needs to be that comes in a legal setup. That's also the reason we have a regulator to ensure everything goes fine around it. Another particularity of these actors is that they are the only one to have the best view on the network state, so they know what happens there, and so it's important when they use the market, they use that information. And why I talk about them all together is because the action of one can highly impact the other one, in fact, because if you try to solve some local issues, you can affect the balancing, as it was mentioned previously. And even though they don't have really market-driven incentive to collaborate, depending on the regulation and so on, it can still be highly beneficial because by cooperating, they can solve both of their problems, sometimes simultaneously, or at least ensure that when solving the problem of one's, they don't create more problem for the other. And so what I propose you right now is to see a bit what it means for a TSO and a DSO to cooperate market-wise based on our experience. And just a small word before that is to say that setting up a flexibility market can sound as easy, but its flexibility should not be overlooked for several reasons. One of them is to manage still the economical efficiency, because we want to have the smaller cost as possible while being fair for all participants. It's a bit in the mindset of the DSO to give the same level of service to everyone. A second challenge is to maintain a system with the lowest as possible institutional complexity. And the proxy that I took for this institutional complexity is when we need to translate it into practice at inside. It's what so a market platform around the algorithm can look like, and we need to translate all the authorization of every person to give the right access to the right person at the right moment through a robust platform. And so it's important to have a consistent system, but that is also robust to avoid problems. And a third one, it becomes when markets get bigger, the math behind can become more complex. We need to write good models, sometimes to manage very huge problems. So we need to use some mathematical tricks to do it, and also to manage with the limited precisions of computers. But that's so the kind of challenge we have to deal every day. And what I propose you is to look at TSO coordination schemes now, and to see their impact on the different challenge. And so here we have a kind of a way to see how to differentiate different type of markets. So in all the projects you will see in the future, you will see to which extent the TSO or the DSO cooperate and through which system. So that gives us this graph where we can see different names of the markets, and depending on the TSO or the DSO are cooperating or not. And so I'll just show several examples. Here we can see the two extreme cases if the TSO is running its market on its own and the DSO running its market on its own. So no coordination at all, they do their business, but it's sometimes one of the most costly solutions because they don't take profit one of the other. A variant of it is very similar to it, it's called the fragmented market. It's a similar platform, but there is a clear separation between both actors. So technically speaking, it's a bit different. They go on the same platform, but they don't leverage anything. And then we have the best thing sometimes theoretically is to try to have all the constraints from the TSO and the DSO. So really, mathematically speaking, it's the best. And we take all the offers and we solve everything at once. But then it's super complicated to manage on process-wise. And sometimes it does not work for the DSO or the TSOs for some reasons. And it's why there are some variants here. There is this variant where commercial parties also enter into it, but what happens is also the multi-level market, we call it. So we solve first the DSO problems with the DSO resources, and then in the second time, we solve the TSO problems with the TSO and some of the DSO resources. And thanks to the DSO, which made a filter, or which can be more or less smart, on which offers it allows to go on the upper level, and that he makes sure that won't create problem on the upper level. So that's kind of a mind map to have in mind when we see some projects. We will always find one of these categories, and this map was created in coordinate also with some Belgian actor in the project we were part of. And so we can see that there is no perfect model among all of them, and we saw again our three kind of challenges that comes there. Obviously, having fully separated market is easier to set up, but is one of the worst solutions in terms of economical efficiency. But if you try to put everything together, then the technical scalability can be more challenging, and that's why you need sometimes more advanced solutions. To conclude on that, and for having followed the topic for quite some years now, we have the feeling that we speak about flexibility markets, but I still don't see them in my street, or maybe in Belgium we are not at the same speed of other countries. it's good to a bit look ahead and see that still in the latest projections from Elia, who made his adequacy and flexibility study this year, the projection for the 10 years to come, we can see that there is a lot of decentral flexibility coming in. And so which will be a big challenge, but can be really part of the solution, especially if everything is managed step by step. And talking about step by step, there are small steps achieved every day. One of them is UKPN today, that is in fact running now for some weeks or months, and that we are serving with Apex, but building on the previous LEM Cornwall project we had with Centrica, with the same solution. So, and UKPN is the biggest, or one of the biggest DSO in the UK, in the London region, that knows really use flexibility, not for pilot projects, but for managing this grid. And so that's it for this a bit overview as fast as I could, and I will be pleased to answer the question you could have about the way we categorize the markets or any other questions about it from our market enabler perspective.
Guys, we have time for one question. Do you have? Yes, Omar.
You mentioned matching resources to the buyers, and that's what you call market. But in one of the projects that we were also working together, there was a problem of liquidity. So what happens when there is a lack of resource and there is more need of that resource? How do you map that, and how do we ensure market efficiency in context of lack of liquidity in energy market?
So I'll repeat the question for online people. Umar asked a question about the Universal project you can see over there, where we had the chance to work together, and he asked what to do or what can we do at Inside when a market has very a low liquidity, which means that there are only too limited numbers of participants or flex providers in the market. And how to do it? I guess there is no magic as a market enabler. If you don't have enough liquidity, you try to still take the best of it. That's what we did in that project, and that's also the way we designed our solution in that example. Is that sometimes even you don't have to have mathematically an infeasible problem, but still to take all what you can to help the DSOs with a market-based solution. And then I directly build on one of the solutions that is done in the Netherlands with the idea of, okay, people, we invited you to participate in the market. If it does not work, then the DSO has non-market possibilities like smart connection agreements he can build on, or even force people to just disconnect because he needs to keep his network safe. But it's an important matter, and I think that is this project, it was also due to the fact that people didn't really it's hard concepts to get as a citizen that, yeah, of course, things are changing. What you had all the time as a really super reliable service can be more challenging to procure with the renewables coming in. So a lot of education is probably needed also to help around the markets.
I'm afraid I'll have to stop now, but in the panel discussion, maybe you can ask. Thank you, Pierre. All right, guys. So until now, we have had the perspective of a DSO, an aggregator, and now a market operator. So now we'll go to the regulation side of things. So with us, we have the pleasure of having Marijn Meinhout, who is from CREG. After having tried to become a professional footballer, Marijn, in his early teens, he quickly realized that having a master's and a PhD degree in electrical engineering at KU Leuven would look great on his CV. So currently working as an advisor to CREG, Marijn has gained experience in market monitoring, strategic market behavior, data analysis using AI, and market design. Now he's fully into the topic of balancing and closely works together with the key stakeholders to bring flexibility to the electrical system. As the co-president at Acer, Acer's balancing task force, he had a major contribution to the integration of national balancing markets into the single European market. Today, he will give a short presentation on how flexibility can be used efficiently. Marian, the floor is yours.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you very much. So my presentation will be a bit less technical than the other ones. I'm going to talk about the efficient use of energy flexibility. I'm here not talking about technical efficiency or energy efficiency, but efficiency from a regulatory perspective. That's because I work at the CREG, so we are the federal regulator for electricity and gas. There are multiple regulators in Belgium. We are a legally defined entity, let's say, with some also legally defined tasks. One of them is efficient market functioning, reducing barriers, lowering costs for end consumers. And this is also a regulatory slide, so this presentation does not necessarily represent the views of the CREG. Maybe in terms of scope, so if we look at the legal framework, and also evident of the initiatives that have been presented in the previous slides, there are a lot of parameters with which you can play in order to bring flexibility to the market. You have different markets, you have different demand. So for example, it's a transmission operator or the distribution operator. It's in day ahead, real time. You have a lot of different options. And so what I mean with bringing flexibility efficiently to the market is how can we bring that flexibility in a coordinated manner to the market in order to solve system needs also at the lowest cost for the end consumer. So this is really a bird's eye view on a system perspective. And I don't have really a good story to tell. I just have several examples, and the goal is more to pique your interest in terms of how we think at the CREG and what considerations or principles that we handle. I start with a small, easy example. We have, let's say, two different zones. I have noted the demand as imbalance demand, so it's a power imbalance in the zone. You have limited transmission capacity. And then and of course different units, different prices. As already explained, we apply a market to that. And of course, this market, we can do it very simple. We can just look at all the resources that are available and we optimize this market. The problem is, there is a constraint. And so if you don't take into account that constraint, okay, there is a system security issue. This system security issue, if you did not take it into account, must be corrected, right, by the system operator. So he will then intervene in the optimal market results by, in this case, redispatching. He will ask some market participants to change their output and others to increase their output. And at the end of the day, you arrive at the same dispatch solution as if you would have taken the constraint into account from the beginning. This is, of course, let's say, engineering 101, take your boundary conditions into account. But this doesn't really happen in reality. So we, for example, in Europe, we have a zonal approach. We assume that some countries are a copper plate, while in reality we see that this copper plate does not exist. And so redispatch actions are very common. And so we are very commonly already changing the market results, right? A recent example, for example, is in the previous months. I'm not sure if you heard, but the French TSO, due to local congestions, needed to perform regularly redispatching actions, which basically increased the costs for the Belgian consumer in the European market. And this is currently being investigated as well. And so one of the principles is, okay, you should reflect the actual system conditions. This can go very far, as evident from the previous presentation. Even in Texas, you have, let's say, the nodal pricing design, where even different neighborhoods can have different prices based on the different system needs, also at distribution level. Okay. A second principle is that we need to encourage the right flexibility to address the right system need. And before explaining this, I explain a bit how reserve markets work, or reserves work in Belgium and in Europe. So you have different types of reserves in order to stabilize and restore the frequency. Stabilization of the frequency is done by the frequency containment reserve. Then you still have a frequency deviation to solve. And then you can basically use slow reserves. It's the manual frequency restoration reserve, or the fast reserves. You have a collection of both. Now, this is a graph that represents an actual situation in the Belgian system. It's on the 24th of March of last year. And the left-hand side, maybe focus first on this one. The orange bars, they indicate the power imbalance in Belgium every minute, right? So this is a graph taking 1 hour and 15 minutes. So you have 5 Carter hours with every minute a bar signaling the power imbalance. And this needs to be solved in some way by the system operator. He needs to make sure that the system is in balance. And this is done by using the products on the right-hand side. And here you can see that the red rectangle of bars, it's the slow flexibility. The yellow is the fast flexibility, and then the orange is something else which we will ignore for the moment. And what you can see is that, yeah, in this case, from both a technical and an economical perspective, it's not really good balancing. And this is not a criticism. It's easy to say ex post something went good, something went bad. But just to say that on this specific period, we needed fast reserves, and the choice was made to use less fast reserves. And as a consequence, we needed to compensate the effect of the slow reserves with the fast reserves, which totally does not make sense from a technical or even economic perspective. And so the message here is not, oh, this is wrong in reality, but if you look at the assets that were talked about today, it's demand response, it's batteries, heat pumps, boilers, they can all provide the fast reserves. And so the sufficient conditions need to be there in order to bring and encourage those units to participate in those markets. And of course, these units could also participate in the day-ahead market, let's say, but that would, from a technical point of view, be maybe less value for the end consumer. A third principle is prefer the explicit over implicit participation, just to link it with, let's say, something we know from reality. We know that in Belgium there are dynamic contracts possible where you get billed by your supplier every hour following the day-ahead prices. So as a end consumer or market participant, you could say, you know what, I have some flexibility, but I will not participate in the day-ahead market. I will just wait. So in this example, it's the same example as in the first principle. One market participant says, you know what, I'm not going to actively participate in that market, and I will let the market clear without me. Of course, you have then some result which deviates from the beginning, but the flexibility is still there, and the end consumer can still use his flexibility. And so he can decide in real time, you know what, based on a very good price in the day-ahead market, I will nevertheless consume, even though I planned not to consume or to inject. And this might pose some problems. This is not always the case. However, one interesting thing to consider is that a market tries to optimize the welfare of society. So if you participate in that market, what the market will do is he will try to give you a good deal while at the same time looking at maximizing the social welfare. If you are not participating in this market, then you are an entity looking at individual interests. You are a profit-maximizing entity. And so the result of the profit-maximizing entity at a certain moment in time might not be aligned with the social welfare optimization. I included here an example. I will not run through it. I just want to highlight that, of course, you want to get the option with the highest profit and not the lowest one. So the checkbox need to be up there. Especially in, let's say, real-time markets or where system security is really important, like congestion markets or whatever, you want, of course, the market participant not to do something that goes against the constraint that you would like to solve. Especially because the constraint that you would like to solve involves system security. And I think it's very difficult to put a price on system security. I think as a demand, on the demand side, you don't have a lot of bargaining power. So there are conflicting interests if with an implicit participation, the TSO, for example, in this case, needs to balance the grid at any cost, and the BRP wants to maximize his profit. So it's kind of a game of chicken, maybe in this case. A fourth principle is that we need to have a system or a market which gives clear and unambiguous signals to the end consumer or to the market participant. So I took here, for example, the case where the distribution grid operator wants to solve a congestion, but at the same time the TSO wants to solve an imbalance. And so if both of them send a signal to the flexibility service provider, then the flexibility service provider will not say, hey, I'm going to solve the congestion necessarily. He will look at what is the highest price, where is my highest profit, and I will react to that. And so again, I have included some napkin calculation, which shows in this case, as evident or also said by one of the other presenters, that if you would do it in a non-coordinated or non-integrated way, currently at least you would, as a flexibility service provider, try to solve the balance issue and ignore the local congestion, which is something that, of course, we do not want. And lastly, a very important principle is consumer protection. Also, consumers need to, also it's consumer complexity as well. So a consumer is not an energy professional. Don't expect him to be an energy professional. We are interested in energy. Some of us won't even try the complexity. Do not expect a normal customer to, and then I speak of residential customer, to also take that complexity into account. It's either costly, he doesn't care, there are small gains. So make it as simple as possible, and if we want to look at a solution that is long-term and that would unlock as much flexibility as we can possibly do, maybe we should not necessarily look at pushing complexity to the consumer out of arguments of that it is cheaper for other participants, professional participants in the system. Especially if complexity is pushed, and here you see a table at the end of the slide. If some complexity is pushed, then you see that the cost for activating on the consumer side may rise rapidly. So the CREG did a small survey, well, a statistically significant survey of Belgian residential consumers, where we said, okay, assume 1 hour in advance, you know that you cannot consume the next hour, or 4 hours in advance, you cannot consume during an hour, and also day ahead in advance, you cannot consume 6 hours. What would be kind of the price that you would be willing to do to not consume at all? So it's kind of intrusive, of course, but it gives some indication on the prices. And then here we see the willingness to participate is in the column VOLL, it's the value of lost load, which is not well used in this case. But we see in terms of euro per megawatt hours, it's 1,600 to 10,000 euros per megawatt hour. These are prices that we have never seen in the day-ahead market, intraday market, maybe on the balancing market, but then you don't have the lead time of 1 hour. You need to decide, okay, from this moment on, you cannot consume. So we see that the cost is very high, and then it would be a bit of a shame to have a technical solution ready when the cost is very high to participate, and so no value is being brought to the system. So this ends my presentation. So I just summarized a bit what is in my presentation. I think the most important things is the price signals that need to be clear, unambiguous, and that need to reflect the system condition. The TSO-DSO coordination that was also mentioned by other presenters, and also keep it simple for the end consumer. Otherwise, maybe a lot of effort would be lost. Thank you very much.
So if you have any questions.
So we see there are so many market products presently available, and I agree with the point of view that you presented here that some of these market products might be in conflict with each other. And so are you, do you support value stacking, or do you think it will be more efficient to have a one single market product which actually represents the system state? But then I think it's tricky because in the transmission side, the needs are different from the distribution network, and they might not be aligned in some sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the question is, given that I said that we need to give one clear signal to the consumer, is value stacking part of the option, or do we need one product? I think it's not an or a story, to be honest. So value stacking can have a value if you, for example, grab opportunities partly in the day-ahead market and then partly congestion, etc. But I think that at least there should be no arbitrage possible that is not really in line with what is needed from the system. So in this sense, I would refer to, I think it was the multi-market or the multi-market solution, where, of course, if there is a local congestion at the distribution grid, per definition, from a conceptual point of view, you do not have the capacity to participate in the balancing market once that congestion is reached. So basically, the product of balancing should, after a while, not be possible anymore to participate in. So you can value stack still, but at least I think that there should be one signal, and that signal should be able to change depending on the system state. I'm not sure if that was clear or...
I think it's clear. Like IEEE has this imbalance signal, which in a recent presentation, they were saying that the imbalance signal does not reflect the network state. I think it's problematic because there might be surplus and deficit, which does not actually represent the state of the network, but maybe supply and something else. Like I think it's tragic that there are such peaks happening because of not of the network state, but market manipulations.
To be investigated. Huh? So the remark was that IEEE gave a presentation where the imbalance price did not reflect the system state. I think this is a very difficult topic. So the imbalance price, first of all, I don't know the presentation you referred to, but first of all, we need to analyze why the price has been formed in a certain way. Was it because of congestions? Was it because of gaming, as you mentioned? But it could also be part of the rules, let's say, or because of some technical limitations. So, for example, if AFRR is delivered in an upward direction on a gas-fired power plant, let's say, then 1 minute after you cannot ask the same gas-fired power plant to deliver AFRR in the opposite direction. So I refer to a graph where the system imbalance changed a lot. So these are, let's say, the things that we first need to look at in order to, before we jump to conclusions that the price would not reflect the system state. It's not because the price is high or low that it is wrong, I would say.
Thank you, Marin. All right, so now we have, after having a perspective on the local perspective, now we're gonna zoom out a bit and take the European perspective. So with us, we have the pleasure of having Ashil Hanoset. So Ashil works in DG Ener unit of European Commission for consumers. local initiatives, and just transition as policy officer. Ashil is part of consumer team following up on the implementation of consumer empowerment related measures and initiatives in the EU energy policy. He is responsible for policies and initiatives related to active consumers, energy sharing, energy communities, and citizen engagement. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So yeah, I'm a social scientist. I'm a legal scholar. I think I'm a bit of a rare duck in the room here today. Go easy on me with the questions. That's all I can say. And I'll try to keep you entertained. I know it's late, it's the last presentation, but because it's policy, it's also a little bit lighter perhaps from your point of view. So, the EU policy framework for consumer empowerment. So, I always like to start with this because it's the larger vision that we have in mind and which is also reflected in our policy documents and in our legislation as the energy system of the future, which will actually be more liberalized and competitive. Still, we see today that most of these energy markets are oligopolies. What we want to go to is a more liberalized, new innovative offers entering the market, and we're enabling that as well. Multiple supply offers at a single connection point should be possible in the future. So you can combine a supply contract for your heat pump or a supply contract with your residual consumption. Digitalized and dynamic, I think we already heard it, but smart meters is the building block, and on that you extract the data and you can start playing with new innovative services such as flexibility. Decentralized and consumer-centered, that's my business. So we empower consumers to also take ownership of production facilities, to take ownership over their energy consumption and adjust it, play with it, so they can increase the value for themselves and get a nice price from it or a nice monetary incentive. More integrated, of course, everything will be more electrified, but combined heat and power generation, I think also an important driver to create a base load within communities. And then decarbonized, of course, which is what drives this entire thing. Otherwise, we wouldn't even be talking about a decentralized energy transition. So, consumer empowerment. The purpose, as we see it, the co-legislators at European Union, they decided that these are the purpose and benefits of consumer empowerment. It's public acceptance of projects, it's private capital mobilization, it's the increase of flexibility, and since REPowerEU and since the energy crisis, it's also securing access to affordable energy. Now, these are the models that we have. We have the individual active consumer, which is at household level. We have the jointly acting multi-apartment buildings, so just an informal, based on private agreements, joint action of consumers. And we have the energy communities, which is a social enterprise, a social form that we empowered to participate in the energy market. Now, let's have a closer look at the first model, which is the active consumers. So for this, we have two concepts in two different legislative instruments. We have the Renewable Energy Directive and we have the Electricity Market Directive. The Renewable Energy Directive is basically giving a little push to get more renewables on the system, and we correlate that to renewable energy targets. The Electricity Market Directive, it's about the electricity market design and how to integrate actors. So everything regarding flexibility, you will find in the Electricity Market Directive and regulation. Now, what is the main purpose for them? Self-consumption or storage behind the meter, and they can participate in flexibility markets. It's an explicit empowerment. This is their right as an active customer. And there are some advantages attached to it, such as the exemption from double charges when providing flexibility services with your storage device. What is key here is that we introduced with the electricity market design reform an expansion of the scope of active consumers. Before that, they were operating at a small scale, multi-apartment building or behind their meter, and now they can start collectively operating across the grid. So you end up with, I'll jump here, you end up with a right to energy sharing. Now, what is energy sharing? What isn't? energy sharing that is behind the meter self-consumption in a collective action. So a microgrid, a private microgrid, forget about it. Energy sharing will not deliver on that, if that was the hope. What energy sharing does deliver on is the sharing of electricity through the network. And that can be at the bidding zone level or at the distribution system level. For certain flexibility services, it could be considered even to lock it down below certain substations. But the idea for the Commission is copper plate. We're still functioning on a copper plate. You can contract as much energy as you want, and we will solve afterwards when the congestion issues arise or we need to redispatch. And we have two models, sharing of self-generated surplus electricity and sharing of collectively generated or stored electricity. Now, the main innovation that we brought is the deduction of metering data. So traditionally, it's the system operator, they handle the data, they check it and say, okay, I should consume this much. And they pass it on to the retail supplier, and then the retail supplier can use that to bill me in proportion to what was metered from my consumption. Now, what we try to do here is we correlate what you inject and what is measured as an injection from your production installation with your consumption. And we make an automatic deduction. So whatever is injected is deducted from your total metered consumption, and your retail supplier cannot bill you for that. It is as if the solar PV was on your own roof, but it's not. It's off-site. It's a solar PV park somewhere in the farmland, in the grass land, somewhere outside of the city, but you're acting as if you're self-consuming it. And this is the innovation that we put in place. Now, this is without prejudice to the network tariffs and the taxes. So it's only with regard to the energy component that this counts. And that's very important to stretch. And what we did, we defined the rights and the responsibilities and the roles. That's what we do as legislators, basically. We tell people, we tell actors what to do and what their role is. I got congestion here as well, yeah. Okay, so here we go. So this is a bit more of a scheduled representation of what you can do with energy sharing. We see it as a measure also for lower income households. So we see in practice also that municipalities such as in Valencia, they're deploying solar PV on public school buildings. And they say, okay, you know, during the weekend, Wednesday afternoon, during the school holidays, lots of sun, no one to consume it, so we give it away to energy poor consumers that need it. And for them, it's a marginal benefit, let's be honest, but for them it can make a real difference. If you can save 50 euros or 20 euros monthly on your energy bill, that's money you can use for essential goods, other essential goods. So energy is also social. That's why we talk about the just transition. Everything is technical and we see it from that perspective, but it's a good that interacts with our most fundamental needs in life, especially these days when we're so dependent on technology. Now, this is the second model, lease, rent, or invest. It's quite interesting. So you could, tomorrow I can have an agreement with you and I will lease your solar PV installation and I will be deriving from that a right to self-consumption. Data management is key in all of this, and this is a representation of kind of what it could look like. So you have Peter and you have Janet, and Peter has solar PV, and he decides to share it with Janet based on a shared ownership of the PV installation at Peter's balcony. And so you see that Peter produces 5 kilowatt hours production, and it gets correlated on the accounting point of Janet, which is integrated in her connection point. It's like a sub-metering point, if you will. And this 5 kilowatt hours production is then deducted from this 6 kilowatt hour production consumption, her total consumption. So what does that mean? At the end of the month, let's say, she doesn't consume anything else, the energy supplier Best E will be able to bill her in proportion to 1 kilowatt hour energy. Now, what is important here, of course, and we just saw it as well, is the predictability of the balancing responsible party, which is the retail supplier that is sitting at that connection point. So for the retail supplier, it gets tricky. because suddenly it gets harder to anticipate what Janet will do. Will she take off, or will she take off from me, or will she take off from Peter? And is Peter actually generating anything? So here again, in order to make this energy sharing something attractive from a financial point of view, we need better prediction as well of these type of active consumers. Energy sharing as flexibility. I'm going to stand here to also see it a bit better. But I wanted to just flag this, but it was already mentioned because we have so many excellent experts here today who know what needs to be done. But I wanted to flag it that the challenge of unlocking flexibility potential of self-consumption and local energy sharing is just part of the overall challenge of DSO modernization and putting in place the right incentives and making flexibility markets accessible. So you still need these dynamic network tariffs or time of use network tariffs. You still need these dynamic price contracts. You still need these local flexibility markets for voltage control or congestion management in order to get the flexibility out of these initiatives. They don't deliver on that by themselves, maybe accidentally. But we see in the discourse at political level that there is a lot of call to give straight exemptions in terms of network tariffs to this type of initiatives. And we from the Commission side, we deem that quite problematic because it will just, they will lean on themselves and they will only think about their own benefit, their own monetary welfare without taking into account the system needs. So energy communities, and I see I have 6 minutes, so I really need to hurry up. So social concept. Just remember this, energy communities, I know you looked at it from a technical point of view. I can't blame you because there's a lot of interesting things that can be attached to a community, especially a micro or a smart grid. But these are essentially social enterprises, and we regulated them as such as well. So here you see what they can do. And they can do a lot. They can invest in energy efficiency. They can buy capacity. And then they can do all type of stuff with their production, installed production and their flexible loads. They can sell it on energy markets. They can trade it on flexibility markets. They can self-supply or share, or they can buy in from the market as well. I will skip this. This is all enabling frameworks, what we put in place. You can all look into that on your own time. What's important is that we understand that these permitting procedures, for example, for installing a 10 kilowatt solar PV installation are very burdensome often. So what we say is make it easier, make it shorter. Within 1 month, you need to have your permission to build your solar PV if it's below that threshold. If you don't get a response within 1 month, it's automatic. You get the automatic approval. So we're kicking these installations forward with these type of measures. So unlocking the flexibility, okay, we saw a lot of nice graphs. This just shows that our flexibility requirements are only here to increase 2030, 2050. The implementation of the clean energy package is ongoing. Yes, you talk about flexibility for years and you don't see any flexibility markets. We don't see them either. Member states are still implementing this legislation that already needed to be transposed at the end of 2020. So we're talking about a huge delay, but we're also talking about a huge challenge and differentiated incentives to make this a reality. The Netherlands, you are far ahead of many other countries just because you need to. In Flanders, we don't care. We have capacity. Why would we have flexibility? It's like that. It's like that. It's a legal requirement. But, the political reality of things. But okay, so these are the key building blocks. You see here, open the electricity markets, use flexibility by system operators, demand response to aggregation and dynamic price contracts and time of use distribution network tariffs. These are key building blocks in the clean energy package. And everything builds on, of course, the very first fundamental step, and that's a smart meter. And I wanted to give you this figure, around 54% penetration rate for electricity smart metering in the EU member states, which is a bit demoralizing, but you will see where the innovation lies in terms of flexibility, but also in terms of energy sharing, is in those member states that have a high penetration rate of smart meters. The existing framework is also complemented with rules on data interoperability. And I give you here an example of what we also do from a legal point of view. We write very abstract directives with general principles, but then we also help the member states through implementing acts. And that can be very detailed. And we issued quite recently, actually, the implementing act to improve access to metering and consumption data. So now consumers, henceforward, if this is further implemented, they can say within 24 hours, dear aggregator, this is my smart meter, this is my data, I give you access, you can perform your services. And for that purpose, you can access and use my data as well. What we correlated with this is an explicit permission. So as a consumer, you have to give permission. It's less easy to get access than with the GDPR rules. GDPR, there are more ways around it. But okay, there's an all ethical discussion to what extent your consumption data actually leads to your identification as you yourself as a person. But let's not get into that. And here you see the interoperability requirements and procedures for access to near real-time metering and consumption data. And here we say, okay, dear member states, you need to take into account the procedural conditions in the annex. And then here I give you table 3 of the annex, and then you see the procedure name, what happens, what is the action, the primary actor, which is here the final customer, and the precondition. The final customer is onboarded. And this is how detailed we spell these things out. And it's not only the Commission that is doing this. This is in deep collaboration with NSOE and the DSO entity and other relevant stakeholders. So one other huge endeavor, which is a long time coming in, which we also have to thank Acer for their valuable contribution in this regard, but also NSOE and DSO entity. So there is a draft to be submitted by these entities by May 2024 to Acer, and then a submission to the European Commission by the end of 2024. Then we take this network code on demand response, this draft, and we make it an official network code. We make our adjustments, we do as we see fit. So this is not binding for us necessarily, but of course it's very valuable on the ground advice that we're receiving. Now, what is this network code gonna do? It's important because it's been raised several times. It's gonna look at market access, aggregation models, pre-qualification and process to engage in the market, market design for congestion management and voltage control. These are the local flexibility markets of the distribution system operator. And last but certainly not least is TSO-DSO coordination. Again, I must say here, if the question would come, how does this look like? We will see. We will see what we get from the stakeholders. We will see whether it makes sense, and then we will decide on whether we go for it or not. But we will certainly take into account parameters like efficiency and institutional complexity, etc. Now, in the electricity market design reform, I give you a small overview. These are all, if it's in the regulation, it will be directly applicable. If it's in the directive, it will be 6 months or 2 years, depending on which type of provisions we're talking about. But what's really nice is an assessment of flexibility needs at member state level. So that should drive a little bit more the consciousness about the use of flexibility, the need within the system to also design certain products. And then system integration in the Fit for 55 package. This mainly relates to small or mobile systems like batteries and EVs, and ensuring that they also find their non-discriminatory access to the flexibility markets. And that's, I think, pretty much it from my side. Thank you very much, and sorry for going over time.
Thanks. I'll take the host privilege to ask a question. So you mentioned about just transition. That was super nice. My question is that how do you actually track the user gets that electricity? Like they sign a contract, of course, but like how do you track that? And does it have to be in the same bidding zone for the receiver if I am the person, or can it be between 2 zones or 3 zones?
Between zones is going to be challenging so far, but we chose between the bidding zone because of the uniformity of pricing and also because usually it's aligned with the balancing market. So there's not really a reason why not to do it as such. In terms of contracts, yes, it's separate energy sharing agreements that you and I basically conclude as consumers. So it's a horizontal market that you're creating, which could be integrated then subsequently with these local flexibility markets. So you're not only trading flexibility at the distribution system level, but you also start trading energy. And I think the Netherlands in this regard is also a front runner with this entrance platform. They created actually a first layer of peer-to-peer trading where cooperatives can share excess electricity. So they're all clusters sharing electricity individually, but then they come into this marketplace where they can say, well, I have some excess, or I have some flexibility, or I have some storage. Oh, you need some production now, I don't need it. So they can start
Can you hear me? Yes. So I'm happy to basically welcome Professor Geert Deconinck for the panel discussion. He'll be the moderator for this panel discussion. So Professor Deconinck is a full professor of smart grids in the Department of Electrical Engineering, ESAT. At KU Leuven and at the Research Center EnergyVille. He's the head of the Electrical Energy Systems and Applications Research Division, which is ELECTA, and he's also the sustainability responsible for ESAT. So he'll be guiding through the panel discussion, and the floor is yours.
Thanks, Hafiz. I'll use this for the panelists, and then we have the second microphone as well. So don't talk without the mic, because otherwise the people online will not be able to hear what you're saying. Thanks for the organization. It was a nice event. Thanks for the speakers. We have seen different perspectives, and lots of questions have popped up during the short presentations. But let's perhaps start by discussing a little bit the value of flexibility. We have seen that a certain amount of flexibility, let's say from a battery, from a heat pump, from an electric car that needs to be charged, it's very much dependent on the time of the day. If you're seeing in the Netherlands, sometimes there's congestion, sometimes there's no congestion. Where you are on the grid, the value is different. Who you are offering it to which market is very different. So how can you make that concept clear to an industrial or to an individual customer, that this value of flexibility is something so different, and we even heard about cannibalization, that the value can decrease over time. How can we deal with this complexity of the value? So how do you sell the value of flexibility to customers? What give you as a kind of guideline, and how do you deal with that complexity? Who would like to start? You have the mic.
Yeah. I guess I can start. I guess one point that I liked from the presentation is that we also don't need to engage the customer too much into the flexibility. So he doesn't need to know all the processes behind the flexibility aggregation, for instance. And the value, I guess I can rely on some social reviews that have been done at some point, and from then we can see that For majority of the customers right now, the main value is the lower electricity bill. So that's what most people are interested in. For some, partially it's more sustainability goals that they want to pursue as end users. And for the rest, which is a small part, it could be just to be a forerunner.
And if you're saying we don't want to expose this value flexibility to the customer, is that from the perspective that you're a company that goes for profit maximization? So basically, I give a little bit to the customer, and then is that the idea behind?
No, I wouldn't put it that way.
It's a bit extreme position, of course, but it's a bit an extreme viewpoint. But
no, the idea is to make the electricity as much affordable as possible to the end customer. And it's up to us already to find the value in the flexibility. But of course, we can also communicate with the customer to say to the customer that it's actually your device that was balancing the grid, and to some customers, it's also very important to know that.
Who else? Yeah.
Yeah, maybe, I'm sorry. If I can react, I think you touch upon a very important point. It's the customer, he doesn't really know the value of its energy or of its flexibility. And then there is, of course, a risk that the value of the flexibility is much higher than what he thinks it is, because the customer isn't an energy professional, doesn't know the entity. So this is, let's say, a big question as well, also from a regulatory perspective. How can we give the customer some signals to what the value of his energy is, and whether he can compare the different value propositions of the different market participants?
Yeah, I think there's also a price of inflexibility. So if we are not flexible, then we as DSO or TSO have to reinforce the grid at its peak, which results in the other 99.9% of the year the grid being optimally used, and that's also very costly to expand the grid while you're using it only maybe 1 or 2 hours in a year where it's very cold and there's no sun and there's no wind. I think inflexibility is also has a price. And then also I think if we were to introduce dynamic tariffs for households in the Netherlands, tomorrow we wouldn't have congestion anymore. So I think you can also make some money by being flexible if you are flexible.
Yeah, good.
I'll have a more social answer maybe to this, as maybe expected. But just to give you an idea, grids are congested. Actors, project developers are not getting access to the grid. And if I read the articles and their arguments, it is rooted in hostile behavior of the system operator. So just not wanting to give the connection, or regulatory barriers. So it's our fault and yours. So these misperceptions, they are emerging and they're here to stay if we don't debunk in a way that we explain the most complex of things that we are discussing now in simple language. And for grid congestion, it's easy. It's traffic. It's basic traffic. And you park your car for a while if it's too much traffic on the highway. And then you can get back on the highway when it's off-peak, and you can drive again. And this is how we need to package it. This is how simple you need to translate it, because yes, there's no nuisance of being connected with an aggregator who then provides you some services, but they still need to give you permission to be able to access their data. And they won't give it to you if they don't understand the concept. Now, that being said, I think what is a first real good step is time of use network tariffs. I think that's a no-brainer. When there's a peak, then you just hire those network tariffs, and then the consumer will understand, like, okay, if the energy bill is clear, okay, like this is getting too expensive, so maybe I should reconsider when I consume. And that's the first layer, that's the first step, and from that we can start building.
perhaps.
Yes, many interesting things already said, including the need of awareness, which is important. But just to come back maybe on the point, it's hard to perceive the value of flexibility, and how can you make sure that the aggregator is not taking everything in its pocket, which is a fair question.
Yeah, sure.
The big difference, if you recall the diagram I've shown, is that the aggregators will be in competition to one another, and if this competition works well, there will be the possibility to change yourself or to have a visibility maybe at the end of the year by the regulator that could display which one is the most attractive, or even to talk with your neighbor and to realize that, yeah, maybe you have an option which is fully different compared to a regulated entity.
You can keep the mic and we go for the second round in the opposite direction. My second question is about the, one of you have referred to it, the report that Elia, as a transmission system operator, has released last year about the flexibility projections for the next 10 years. And well, what they are saying is that, okay, we will have the extension of the nuclear to some extent to solve our electrification issue as part of the energy transition. We will see also new interconnections, like the energy island and the connection, for instance, towards Denmark to get electricity in here. But they also see a big value for flexibility. And they're talking about, for the Belgium, we need like 800 megawatts 10 years from now of flexibility. That is not there yet, but we should come. What do you think about these projections, and what do you think how realistic it is, given the current point where we are, in order to get there? Would you start?
Yeah, I don't have much to say on the competitions of Elia, and I didn't take part in it. Sorry, the way they dimension it. Yeah.
But any idea on how quickly it can grow for a country of Belgium, this flexibility that is really unlocked in practice? That's the question behind.
That's still a tricky question, but I think from my observation from the years, I share that I don't see much flexibility market in my street, but what I saw changing faster than what I expected back in time, because at the end of my high school we had the master thesis version, I recall, and so it dates a bit. And I recall having studied the electric vehicles at that time, where there was basically no electric vehicles. It was kind of the exception. And if we just check over the last years, it changed kind of a lot. And both in terms of the offers, all the car makers and are also incentivized by the European Union to go even faster on that front. And so I guess it depends a bit on the drivers, but things that we don't necessarily imagine that are possible, that can change fast, with the right incentive and with all the industry regulations and the providers that work together, we can sometimes really move faster than what we could have imagined.
Thanks. Achille?
Yeah, I would give the standard reply here that we have everything in place at European level to make it work. This flexibility, to unlock the flexibility, just need to implement. Very basically, the aggregation model already, it's really like that. You need to implement these rules. And then there's a second driver, and that is running into trouble, like the Netherlands does. I think then things will move extremely fast.
But you take the example of, okay, now we can have a different supplier for our takeoff from the grid and for the injection. And de facto, what they are doing is they are charging €100 extra per year as administrative fee in order to handle that. So how do you deal with this kind of, let's say, lobbying of the sector that tries to keep the conservatism in the system where it's difficult to enter as a new player, which would be needed in order to, for instance, play with the flexibility?
I think strong messaging from the institutions and the public administrations and the regulators is needed. We always say, well, this is part of the transition. This needs to be part of your business going forward to incorporate more complex consumption profiles. That we don't have that much sympathy with that. And we expect them to not socialize that on their wider consumer base, but to also invest internally in better predictive algorithms in order to know what's really happening on the ground. That's one part of it. The second part is unfortunately enforcement. So we have these hooks in our legislation, needs to be proportionate, needs to be fair, whatever remuneration or administrative fee you impose. So these abstract principles will need to be interpreted in national courts. Maybe potentially you will have to have a look at that as well. And they will get color and they will become more concrete, but this, of course, that enforcement is not the primary way to go. That derails the timeline usually.
Okay, Alex, in the Netherlands, you have the pressing needs. How did you see the flexibility growing over the years, and how do you see that continuation? I mean, there's still only a limited amount of customers providing flexibility, and only the newcomers that basically want an extension to the grid are getting into this display, but not the existing set of customers. How do you see that
I think
grow in the future?
I think we don't have a choice to become flexible. We have come from a demand-driven electricity grid, and we're going to a supply-driven electricity grid. When there is overproduction of solar and wind, the prices go even negative for electricity. And when there's no solar or wind, prices for electricity are sky high. So I think businesses, they don't have an option not to be flexible, because they go out of business if you can't profit of the negative or even zero or low energy prices. I think we don't have a choice to be flexible.
Mm-hmm. But you see that being taken up?
Slowly, yeah.
Okay, good. Marijn, how does the CREG look at this report from Elia? Or what's your view?
No, so what happens in, let's say, 10 years' time, it's very difficult to estimate. I think we can all agree that the flexibility needs will go up. Will it go up by 800 megawatts or whatever? That's a bit difficult to estimate, and that's also not something that market participants will take into account when investing millions and millions of euro in flexible assets. However, what we can see today, and already for the past 2 years, and now I'm again talking about the balancing markets, is that it's not unusual to see prices of minus 1,000 euro per megawatt hour. It's not unusual to see extreme imbalances that were not seen, let's say, 2 years ago. For example, on the 7th of April, just a recent example, we had a 2 gigawatt imbalance. 2 gigawatts to be activated, that's never seen before. And I think that market participants are starting to pick up that this is a interesting opportunity. However, as you rightly pointed out, it needs to hurt first before it comes at the table at the direction level and before investments are being taken. Mm-hmm. The good thing is, at least from a Belgian perspective, is that we see a lot of projects for flexibility being in the pipeline. Mm-hmm. Will this be enough to cover the needs for the next 10 years? I don't know. We might see prices go back down again. Mm-hmm. Then flexibility will be off the table again. And so this is the normal cycle of investment, I would say.
Yeah. Thanks. Alexei?
Yeah, I will, I guess, answer with the old saying that all forecasts are wrong. So, and in many cases, from the utility perspective, maybe there is underestimation of what is the amount of flexibility that will be available, or the amount of low carbon generation that we'll have on the grid. So in many cases they are underestimated. So I would say it's a lower bound.
Okay.
Although I haven't seen the numbers or the report itself.
Yeah. Okay, good. Questions from the audience? Yes, Professor.
The influence of the capacity tariffing important in the flexibility?
So for the people online, the question from the room is whether the capacity tariff that we now have in Flanders, if it is relevant or influencing the flexibility. Anybody?
Yeah, I guess again.
Yeah.
Make the use of my microphone. Yes, it does. So for now, for instance, when we have to optimize the battery for frequency services, we also need to account the peak demand of the customer and try to do the peak shaving on the demand with the battery. I guess we also did some analysis on that, and this peak charge, it's not bringing a lot of difference for the customer, for many of the customers, but there are certain type of the customers for which this capacity part of the tariff significantly increase the bill.
We don't need an answer from everybody.
Okay.
It's just for the question. But,
yeah, I'm not from Flanders, so.
but it's. Yeah.
Okay, now I am here. Okay, capacity. Yeah, we go there, right? The system operators, they want to go there because it becomes so unpredictable what is going to happen in the system, but you still have this maximum capacity that you know for all the excesses, or a maximum amount of consumption or injection that you will have. So it's, from that perspective, it makes a lot of sense. I think it could incentivize also behind the meter that you lower your connection, so that in that sense it can contribute to flexibility as well. That being said, for energy sharing, now my particular context that I operate in, we see that the member states that have this volumetric component in their network tariff, that they are of course reducing it when the energy sharing takes place locally, and that provides this additional monetary incentives that puts these schemes on the map. And of course that could be an interest for us, because as we saw, it's a first layer. It's the first layer, and then you can start dragging the flexibility out. So maybe this is something that we need to consider, to keep this volumetric part also partially in the network tariff, so that it could incentivize the business case for these type of initiatives.
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of the discussion was about creating flexibility through the demand side, and I wonder if it's not easier to create that flexibility that's necessary in the network through the generators, because you have, for example, a wind farm, megawatts under the roof of one company, controlled by the same entity, versus electric vehicles, which are tens of kilowatts here and there and there and there, controlled by different people. Is it not easier to create the flexibility on the side of the generators rather than the side of the consumers?
So the question for the people online, the flexibility from the demand side versus from the generation side.
Yeah, maybe I can answer based also on the three challenges I mentioned, and I think we would probably win a lot in institutional simplicity by just relying on some actors here and there. But if you stop using the energy, the renewable energy production when it's producing and when you can really benefit from it at a really cheap price, then it will damage the economical efficiency of the whole system. So it's always a balance to which extent you can rely on it, and winning in one dimension may be cost in one other.
Yeah, and there's also times when there's no wind and there's no solar, and you still have demand for electricity, and then you can't ramp up solar or wind when there's no solar or wind. You can only ramp it down. Mm-hmm. So you solved half the problem, I think.
Perhaps more than half. Yeah.
Big half.
A bit more than half, perhaps. But yes?
So, are we at the stage where, if say there's a big industrial player, they have begun to buy assets and invest just to participate in flexibility markets? Or are we still at the stage where we are going behind people who already have assets?
So the question is, does it make sense to invest into flexibility devices rather than just unlock the flexibility that's available already? Yeah?
Yeah.
Or you go first.
I think you need to do both.
But is it financially making sense already to do that, to invest and have a reasonable return on investment?
As a DSO, last year we've gotten gigawatts of requests for a new battery or for large-scale battery projects. So, yeah, I think the market has decided that it makes sense financially to also invest in new flexibility options.
Alexei, you had something to say?
Yeah, I agree with this one. I guess there are two types. So it can be either you want to invest with the goal of making profit, and I think there are lots of now battery storages in the pipeline. There are several gigawatts that are supposed to be installed in Belgium in the coming years. So it still does make sense in terms of the profit as an investment. And for some customers, it's also a way just to survive. For instance, in Netherlands, there are lots of customers that have this congestion and they want to expand their business, but they cannot do that because of the limited capacity, and they need to invest in the storage just to keep going and expand their business.
Shirley wants to add something from a social perspective?
No, market actually. So it depends, of course, a little bit on that as well. And we saw a huge demand for storage and flexible devices just to optimize self-consumption, just to avoid the retail market prices subsequently as well. So I think there is where the benefit lies, of course, in your cost savings from the retail. Now, if we move forward, of course, today, I think it's a good investment, I agree. But moving forward, talking about price cannibalization, going into dynamic price contracts, God knows for how much money you can get energy from your retail supplier in 5 or 10 years. During the day, when the sun is shining, when wind is available, it might actually be quite relatively cheap. So then you can reconsider to what extent actually it would be a good investment to optimize self-consumption. What is the real monetary benefit there then? But today, yes, I think it's a good investment. It still makes sense, and it's key to emphasize this. You're not making that investment for flexibility for the system. As a consumer, residential consumer, as a small bakery, you're not making that investment for the grid. You're making that investment for yourself. The flexibility is how you match your demand with your generation. That's the first layer. So that's where the benefit currently lies. But of course, I agree. Then it becomes value stacking. On top of that, what more can you gain from providing then services to the grid?
So perhaps a question from the people online as well. If you talk about the TSO-DSO coordination schemes, if the flexibility requirement of the TSO causes problems for the DSO, who is going to validate or to pay for it, or how do we deal with that kind of coordination which is not there yet, or which is taking all different types of forms as we see?
Yeah, I can maybe take this one
because
since I've introduced the concept. How we do it and how we did it from our past experience is really to get all the actors around the table to do a market designs that everyone sign. And so in the market designs, we set up rules that then we translate mathematically, and that make sure that things that happens are the things that people agreed on, and usually that when there is something activated for the DSO, it doesn't go to it's not too bad for the TSO, or that when the TSO is activating something, it respects what happens at the DSO level. So really the key is to have the good principles before the situation arises to anticipate it, and then thanks to strong models, you can deal with that.
We could also completely redesign the system and go from zonal to nodal pricing or something in order to solve some issues, rather than trying to do some bricolage afterwards to solve the problems. Yes?
That's a fair point that we can hear sometimes a lot, but we have to also to know what we call zonal to nodal, because even when we check what is nodal in the US, and that's what we saw in the LEM Cornwall with Centrica, there are different levels of substations, and even in the nodal markets in the US, they don't go to the below the street level, really to the number of people. And then as soon as you don't go one level below, you still have issues to manage, especially with high production there. So probably there will always be a need of solutions around it.
Someone else wanted to add something to that? Or perhaps a final question, because yes.
I have a related question. based on what your neighbor is doing, while you have really, you're part of a system, as with the algorithm, for example, like you're trying to optimize the system, not exactly based on what you are doing or even what your neighbor is doing. So how to align all these incentives when I understand that there's advantages of like social advantages to cooperate with your neighbors and so on, but also it might be irrational or quote unquote irrational from the system point of view, because maybe doing something to help your neighbor is actually hurting the system because of whatever reason. And maybe this is for the regulator.
Yeah, for the policymakers.
I mean, that's a very good question, how to do it. I think it's an interesting research question, to be honest. So maybe for the people online. So the question was how to get the incentives right and make sure that, for example, with citizen energy communities or energy sharing, that you do not provoke a system problem. I think currently it's not coordinated, so there are no schemes to coordinate it unless someone corrects me. But this could be a issue if, for example, it's a large-scale energy sharing done within a large country. This could become an issue, and there are no transport capacities available, for balancing, it's less an issue because you are just exchanging energy within one block, so you don't change the balancing. So it's only a congestion issue, I would say. I'm not sure if...
Yeah, I think here as well, a grid connection policy. If the energy sharing scheme is going to cause congestion, then you're probably not going to get the grid connection, or you're going to get a non-firm agreement, a connection agreement that says, okay, in these hours, you need to make sure that you are self-consuming locally, for example, and not using the higher voltage lines. These type of configurations you can imagine. But I think it's a very fascinating question indeed, because we ask it ourselves as well. Like we see some member states saying, let's go fully decentralized, local for local, everything localized. But then indeed we have this entire system set up. There is a trade-off in sort of system efficiency. And also, and not to be underestimated, we will overinvest in our renewable energy capacity. That is a huge risk as well. And here we are already held hostage by certain countries that we might ask also questions about their intentions. So yeah, we might have our second energy crisis, but soon. Then a mineral crisis. Yeah.
Okay, good. We've been a little bit flexible on the agenda as well. We've been taking a few minutes longer, but I would like to thank all of the panelists and give them a big round of applause.